we go. Yeah, so it is our last clean call of June. And we have Parker Mullins joining us, who will be representing CWA, and he'll tell us a little bit more about that initiative. Colleen just joined. She's actually involved as well. So it's good to have you both here. And yeah, I'll start with introductions. Gina Fiorelli-Duranlo, I'm the Clean Program Coordinator. And I'm going to be my announcement is I'm going to be posting the recording to the Excel Summit that happened a couple of weeks ago soon, but I'm having issues with YouTube, so stay tuned for that. Also, Clean is, just as an FYI, hosting our annual review camp on Friday, which is just really exciting. So we'll have a couple dozen reviewers joining us virtually to review like 60 new resources that may or may not be entered into the Clean collection. So we'll be at about 1,000 resources in the Clean collection once this review camp is done, which is really, really exciting. So those are my announcements. And Parker is next to me, so I'll actually let him introduce himself.
Hello, my name is Parker Mullins, and I'm the Senior Director for CE Clean Energy Bright Futures at the Bonneville Environmental Foundation. And our program focuses on career-connected clean energy education and workforce projects, primarily through educator leadership and partner development to build talent ecosystems locally. So I'll talk a little bit more about how our program works in a moment, but thank you for having me. I'm excited to share some more about CWA, as well as the programs involved.
Anne, you're next on my screen. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, hey, I'm Ann Henderson, and I'm the Director of Education at FAU Pine Jog Environmental Education Center. And I don't really have any announcements. I mean, I guess we're doing a climate ready, well, Rachel can probably tell you more about this. I think she's on here, so she'll tell you a little bit more about that. I don't want to steal her thunder, so because she's the program coordinator of that program.
Rachel, you jump in. Thank you, Anne.
Sure. Rachel Wellman here. I am program coordinator at FAU Pine Jog Environmental Education Center. I lead the Climate Ready program, and we have 21 students registered this summer. So we're gearing up for that course, which is in just a few weeks. And let's pass it to Scott.
Tell them how many students you have, though.
21. I mentioned 21.
Very, very nice. Scott Lewis here, also in Florida here with the Florida Climate Educators Network. So happy to be here today.
Thanks, Scott. Bryce?
Hi, everyone. My name is Bryce Kuhn, and I'm the Director of Education with earthday.org. I believe this is my first clean meeting. I've known about it for a while from my work with Frank Leopold, and then was reminded of it yesterday while looking up AGU proposals. So thought I'd hop on the call today. So nice to see you all, and thanks for letting me join.
Nice having you. Glad that our AGU sessions are getting out there. Wendy, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Wendy Johnson. I am a science education specialist with the National Center for Science Education.
And Colleen, I think you are last.
Hi, everybody. I'm Colleen Fisk. I'm the education director for the nonprofit Renewable Energy Alaska Project up here in Tenino Lands outside Wasilla, Alaska. And I have a gloriously open work schedule the next month because I just finished up the Recharge Academy that we had 2 weeks ago that we did with Kidwind, which was great success. We had 34 teachers from around the US who came up to Alaska, up to Fairbanks. And so it was cool talking about, yeah, energy efficiency, renewable energy in Alaska and with Kidwind and yeah, all the great things. So it was a really fun time. Really cool having so many people up to show off Alaska and the stuff that we're doing up here.
That's awesome. That always seems like it's such a success. So that's so great, Colleen.
Yeah, but then I missed the Excels, so
Yeah,
can't be at two places at once, even virtually.
I know. It's so tough with timing, and I know we keep seeming to pick dates that don't work for you specifically, Colleen, and I know it didn't work for many, many people, so that I am trying to get the recording out for that reason, but
Yeah, I mean, you're never good. Yeah, it's not a anything against you, Gina. It's just that's just how life is. There's so many of us across what, 5 time zones. So like
yeah,
you're not gonna be able to get everybody. So I
yeah.
appreciate you working on the recording so I can check that out.
Thank you. Lynn, I see that you just joined and everyone has done introductions. I don't know if you want to share yours or um
Hi, everybody. I'm Lynn Pender, based in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm one of the co-founders of a nonprofit called Baltimore Green Justice Workers Cooperative, and we work with older adults, helping them jumpstart a career pathway into green careers.
awesome. Thanks, Lynn. Great. Well, if you think of anything else that you want to share, again, feel free to put it in the chat. Otherwise it is 1:09, so I'll pass things over to Parker so he can share his presentation. And you should be able to share your screen, Parker.
Cool. One moment. Let me just make sure I get this open correctly. Can you see my slide presentation and not notes? I always double check because it's kind of embarrassing when you have your notes up sometimes.
Yeah.
All right. Wonderful. Great. Well, one thing, Gina, I was hoping to do some breakouts at some point, and if you wanted, if possible, could you arrange a couple of rooms of 2 to 3 folks?
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So as, I kind of introduced myself earlier, but Parker Mullins, Senior Director for CE Clean Energy Bright Futures, program at Bonneville Environmental Foundation, and wanted to talk with you all about CEWA, or the Clean Energy Education and Workforce Alliance. There are several other folks who are kind of thinking about how to restart and jumpstart this project, who are going to join today, Michael Larkin and Remy Pangle, but could not make it due to all the summer commitments, like the Recharge Academy, for example, that are happening right now. So I'll kind of talk a little bit about them and our history of this project, and also want to say right at the bat, this is also an open invitation for any more participation from folks who are interested in this work. It's a big part of what we're kind of doing now with this project. So we'll talk a little bit about background and talk a little bit about what this alliance has done in the past with our summits and what we've found at the summits, and talk a little bit about how that kind of relates to talent ecosystems and building networks. And then we can have some discussion time as well. So we really wanted to kind of solicit some feedback and get some data from you all about ideas for next steps moving forward. We're all about not reinventing the wheel. We're all about making sure that we are kind of staying connected and in tune and alignment with all the amazing networks that have developed either within or adjacent to the space of clean energy workforce. So I'd love to hear any insights that you have as well about ways to move forward. So a couple of so again, I'm just going to highlight the folks who were going to be here, but our resources for you to connect with as well around moving forward with CEWA. Kidwind was one of our founding partners with the project. I think a lot of you know Kidwind, but they emphasize engineering design challenges in wind and solar energy. And it sounds like they had a great kind of institute this summer. That's awesome. Another key partner working on with this right now on this is Repowering Schools. Remy Pangle at James Madison University has been working since the beginning of this program and has a long history with repowering schools and building education projects on renewable energy across the country. And so there's some slides from her to just kind of share their reach and the kind of partners that they have involved. And our program is CE, or Clean Energy Bright Futures. This is the one I can speak to a little bit, so I don't want to speak too much to the other programs and speak for them, but a little bit about our program. We focus primarily on working with educator leaders and working with them to build talent ecosystems and education ecosystems around clean energy in their regions. These are called our Clean Energy Fellows. They'll work with us over the course of at least a year and working on individual projects. Sometimes they're framed as like an action plan for their region. Sometimes they're focused on a specific technology. We worked with Kidwind and Repowering Schools, for example, on offshore wind in New Jersey, and had a cohort of Clean Energy Fellows looking into that project, looking into that sort of workforce ecosystem and building curriculum that lined up with real jobs in that space. So talk a little bit about our Clean Energy Fellows, but again, just wanted to kind of emphasize that these are also a way in which we kind of bring educator voices into a lot of the networks that we're a part of. Our Clean Energy Fellows are really, the heart and soul of our program. We're a small program of generally 4 people. And so working nationwide, we really rely on our fellows to share their expertise and their genius about what their students' needs are and what the community needs are, so that we can help them to develop programming that fits those needs. Another kind of area of work that we're involved with is working in different talent ecosystems. This was kind of jump-started, I think, by a project with National Renewable Energy Lab, focusing on water power in the Pacific Northwest and building a clean energy talent hub, is what we called it initially, looking at the different networks of partners, ongoing activities, and opportunities for building new activities in the space of water power, so hydropower and marine renewable energy. And I think that this has also kind of led us to kind of where we're at now in terms of our understanding of what the needs are for these networks that are across the country, focused on energy and talent development and workforce development education. And so I'll share a little bit about that momentarily. But to talk about the CEWA Alliance, this was started back in 2021, and it's a coalition of clean energy educators, organizations, different agencies, colleges, universities, research and industry institutions, utilities, and renewable energy companies that are all focused on building a resilient and equitable clean energy economy that's really shaped and informed by students, educators, and the public. And so right away, I think I just want to emphasize that something that I think has differentiated our approach from the beginning from other workforce development, I think nationwide networks, is an emphasis on educators and practitioners from the K-12 education space and bringing their voices into the conversation. And so we've had 2 summits in the past that were virtual, 2021 and 2022, where we worked and looked at kind of like different strands to identify kind of focus areas for soliciting information, again, from our participants and figuring out what the needs were in this space. And this is a more extensive list of partners who are involved with that. Like as was mentioned earlier, Colleen involved with this project, and also a lot of other really wonderful partners that drove some pretty fantastic outcomes from these first couple of years with CEWA. And we're hoping to kind of leverage what we already have done and leverage some of our findings to make sure that we're connecting in whatever way possible to ongoing networks or getting our network jump started back again. So initial summit goals, we wanted to connect teachers, resources, and industry professionals. Oftentimes those folks are not in the same room, especially teacher voices, I think, are excluded a lot from conversations from what we found. And so making sure that they were represented and their expertise was driving conversation. We really focused on assets-based approach, and with that comes building like 2-way relationships. So it's not just industry and research providing what they can to education, which is kind of often, unfortunately, the sort of stereotype of what takes place in these partnerships, but also those industry professionals and researchers learning from educators. They have a lot to learn about the emerging workforce from our K-12 educators. We also really wanted to kind of get a sense of existing projects, resources, and sort of impacts of energy education, what's out there, how can folks get more connected to it. And then ideally wanted to establish some more long-term projects, whether that be working groups or continue to build some action-oriented solutions in this space, whether that be looking at building programming, so looking for funding to do that, or joining up or linking other sort of talent networks. So a couple of major after the first 2 years, we pulled together a report, which I'm happy to share with everyone about the findings from each strand that we looked at. And so a lot of this, each of these summits was really discussion and participation based. We had working groups working in different rooms, focusing on different strands. So one of those was student experiences and learning about clean energy. And so within that strand, there was a lot of conversation about continuing to link existing resources to local communities and making sure that those were localized. There's a lot of curriculum out there. There's becoming less and less of a need to develop entirely new curriculum and more of a need to localize existing high quality curriculum. We wanted to also emphasize all careers and not just STEM careers in the clean energy space. I know that a lot of you are involved with green workforce development and understand how much overlap there is between different sectors in that space, and also understanding that it's not just engineers who work in these jobs, which sometimes I think can be the emphasis in education, but we're also talking about policy folks. We're talking about people in marketing, talking about people in accounting, talking about trades careers in particular right now as they're the fastest growing sector in clean energy. So we're emphasizing all careers with this for students. The next strand was looking at educator knowledge and learning. Wanted to continue kind of building out educational resources, particularly a framework. There's a lot of, I think, there's been a lot of conversation about how to link these clean energy topics to NGSS. But I think having what came up a lot in our conversations with folks who were at the summit was the need for like a sort of a separate layer of standards that looked at what students should be learning at different grade bands around clean energy and connecting to careers. There's also, of course, as I'm sure you all are aware, a large gap in training and resources for educators. And I think that something that came up a lot was an emphasis on long-term training for educators to build really self-sustaining programming. And then the clean energy talent development career pathways, this is really kind of focused on the industry participants. We had a lot of industry participation in this strand. There are, first of all, a lot of needs around getting a sense of what students actually know about these careers and what they know about the realistic pathways into them. And so I think one big area of need is a consistent surveying, not only of just energy literacy as a whole, but energy career literacy. And that was a big point of conversation with our industry partners. So I'll let you all kind of dive into this more in breakout rooms, but I kind of wanted to talk about where that sort of leads us all right now. Tina, sorry, I just looked over and I saw your hand partially up. Did you have a question?
Sorry. No, I was just moving my hand around, but I do have breakout rooms set up whenever you're ready. So
cool. Awesome. Thank you. So just wanted to cover one last thing before we go into breakouts, which is just kind of what our reflections have been recently as an alliance, as a network of folks looking at these topics. And I'll kind of share from the CE perspective, as well as kind of bringing in some conversation with other folks that we've had recently. So we, as I mentioned, have had an opportunity to work within different talent ecosystems, particularly in the Northwest. And when I say talent ecosystem, it's similar to a STEM ecosystem where, insofar as clean energy talent ecosystems, we're looking at all of the different partnerships, programming, and needs that are affiliated with getting a person into a clean energy career pathway. And so this is an example of some of the mapping that we did for the Pacific Northwest. So you can see we have both direct and indirect relationships with an individual student. So that's who is in the middle. You can see some of those closer ones are their school, libraries, community, their home, higher education, business, after school. As you branch further and further out, there are more there are more partners who are involved in that student's success in entering a clean energy career. And we sort of map this out again the relative sort of distance to from a student to that partner and how they engage. But that does absolutely not demonstrate, I guess, like how important those partners are to that student success as well. But for example, looking at one specific clean energy fellow that we worked with, sort of a teacher leader in the Pacific Northwest. This person was involved with both us, their school district, their STEM network, their community, different businesses in their community, their regional tribal nation, the Coeur d'Alene tribe, BPA, the Bonneville Power Administration, Hydropower Foundation, National Renewable Energy Lab, USDOE. And so you can really see how one educator in particular can, and one practitioner can really engage with a lot of different entities in their work. And that will all has an impact on their students. And so thinking about how to look at each talent ecosystem, engaging all of these folks really takes a super localized approach. But you can also see that there's a lot of national level partnerships as well that are involved, and really kind of a need as well for sort of a streamlining and standardization of how these ecosystems look. So all that to say, there's a lot of networks that are popping up around the country looking at workforce and clean energy. A lot of those are regional, and a lot of those are really kind of starting to provide direction to other networks and how they can institute best practices. We initially in our work had sort of talked about envisioning sort of maybe like a hub model based on technologies, but kind of has had abandoned that. But again, wanted to emphasize that a lot of this work does happen regionally, specifically in terms of building local partnerships, regional partnerships. Education happens regionally, workforce development happens regionally, industry develops regionally, especially when we're looking at localized clean energy topics. And so those real kind of expansion opportunities regionally have to be within the context of kind of building national networks as well. So there are, and I just want to provide examples of these. Of course, there is CLEAN. I wanted to mention that front and center as far as existing networks to engage with. We also have, IREC's National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance, NREL's workforce projects, other labs projects, and then there's some state and local examples like the Oregon Clean Energy Workforce Coalition. And then there are a lot of technology-based examples of all these different talent ecosystems and coalitions, networks, all focusing on clean energy. But there are some needs that still pop up. And I think that what we're trying to figure out with CEWA is how to address those needs. So definitely a need for continued structuring for national alignment. There is, again, a need for sharing best practices, but not necessarily a method to do that that is consistent and reaches all communities, particularly those that have been historically excluded from the benefits of economic development. And so emphasizing reaching those communities would be a priority for some sort of structuring around this. And while there is federal funding, a lot of it is not reaching those communities still. And so it indicates a need for more and more sort of structuring again and alignment nationally between different networks. So another piece, though, that we think that CEWA could really offer to this effort, though, is the voices of K through 12 practitioners throughout all networks. Again, there is a huge need for this, especially when you're looking at state level workforce development projects, and whether that be, whether they emphasize K through 12 or not, we've definitely found that there's still a need to include more voices. Sometimes there are networks that do have educators present, but the representation from communities in their state is limited, and maybe limited and skewed towards more resourced communities. And so a big challenge there, but something that CEWA as a network wants to be able to offer either to other talent networks and clean energy workforce projects, or take on sort of as its own initiative to kind of connect these groups. So that's sort of where we stand, and with kind of where we're at with CEWA, and we're trying to figure out how to take some next steps, whether that be securing different funding to have permanent staffing that would support a network being implemented that would really connect a lot of these talent ecosystems with some of the K through 12 practitioner voices and expertise that exists in CEWA. Also thinking about are there groups that we should just merge with? Again, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel or create another new network that's unnecessary. So would love to hear ideas that you all have for merging networks and ensuring that the components that really founded CEWA align with what's happening in those networks and can still be a key part of the work. So I think ready for discussion now, if folks are ready. I have I don't know if you all, I'm sure you all as folks and educators and facilitators feel the same way I do about this, but I miss Jamboard. It was so easy to collect information from people and have a collaborative space online. Miro just doesn't cut it. But what I've done is I've set up some Google Slides for us to use so that way, I say Miro doesn't cut it. Miro's great, but you have to sign up and then it just becomes clunky. But I set up some slides for us to take notes on. And within those slides, let me stop and reshare the specific presentation. In your breakout rooms, I was hoping that you all would have an opportunity to take a look at some of these findings from can you see, I guess, this specifically? There it is. Cool. Take a look at some of the recommendations and findings from our CEWA summits and use those as part of a discussion and around some questions that are organized by those strands. So I have some instructions in here, and then there are also the major recommendations that you can look at. Again, these were generated from participants in the CEWA summits and in their working groups. So taking a look at those first would probably be helpful. And then I have, for each question, I have a couple of slides. Maybe that is, each breakout room chooses their own. So find one that nobody is in, or you can share one. It might just be more difficult. But these are all the same question, and it's kind of organized by strand. So there's one question to discuss for strand 1, one to discuss for strand 2, and then one for strand 3. So 3 questions in total. There's just 5 slides per question, so you all have a place to take notes. But if we could go into breakout rooms, I guess the first thing would be to kind of make sure you understand the directions. And if you don't, maybe you can pop out and ask me, because I'll stay out in the main room, not answer any questions. But if you do, just go ahead and jump into the specific strand-based questions. So again, there's 3, and you can reference the strands up here. I think with timing, maybe it makes sense to do 15 minutes. So there's 5 minutes per question to look at these in your breakouts. But this would be immensely helpful for our program to collect information and ideas from you all. And then we'll have a discussion when you get back so you can elaborate on those points some more. But yeah, does anyone have any, I guess, questions before you go into breakout rooms?
Yeah, sorry I missed the beginning of the conversation there, Parker. This is Patrick Chandler, and a colleague of Gina's and Clean's. And I was just curious what your goals would be for using the answers to these questions. Now, you mentioned they'd be helpful, but I'm hoping to learn more about in what ways you're hoping for help.
I think there's a couple of different ways. One is figuring out ideas that you have for existing resources and opportunities for CEWA to kind of merge with. Again, there's a lot of networks that have been established. There's a lot of bright spots kind of across the spectrum as far as looking at clean energy and workforce. Are there places where, there are opportunities that could be leveraged? I think with some of these questions, for example, question 1, what opportunities and existing pathways are there for building capacity around student participation? That hones in on specifically students, but I think we want to use this to be able to kind of choose a direction for CEWA. Do we keep implementing summits, for example? Do we join existing networks that are doing sort of their own gathering spaces? And again, what are we missing, I guess, from the conversation? That's, I think, what we would be looking for. We've been working to also identify funding opportunities. And so maybe some of your ideas would help us to pinpoint funding opportunities or support us as we apply for funding with ideas for things that could be included. And also partnerships that would be beneficial. Feel free to add in your contact information, things like that. So does that make sense? And sorry for not outlining it in a slide. I probably should have done that too.
All right, thanks.
All
Cool.
right.
15 minutes, I guess.
Sounds good. I will open things up and I'll go in room 3 if you're gonna stay out here, Parker.
Okay.
Do we have the slideshow
Oh,
available?
let me share it really quick. Sorry. Great question.
Thanks.
Will that go to folks who are in breakout rooms? I'm not sure if it will.
I can broadcast it.
Okay, thank you.
I think I need to join the room to do that. Okay. Hey, it
Hey
looks
there.
like folks are working on strand 2 and well, no, it looks like the last group did start
Yeah.
on strand.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you had something specific that you needed like 10 minutes for, or if you wanted to push this.
We can keep going, and then I can wrap up. And like, I just wanted to open it to the room to hear kind of like their summary thoughts, and I can kind of summarize what I'm seeing. But if they're writing some really great stuff in there. So
Yeah, exactly. I knew that getting feedback was really important, so I
yeah,
didn't want to squash it too
yeah.
early.
I appreciate helping to collect that information, and thank you for jumping in there too.
Yeah, I'm glad that there's good feedback in there. Let me give it, I'll give it, I'll start closing the rooms at 1:54. How about
Okay,
that?
cool.
All right, I'm gonna go back to my room. There we go.
Hello.
I clicked the button to like leave, so I just like immediately ejected from
Oh,
that.
I hate when that happens. Yeah.
Like, bye, I
Yeah,
guess.
you're like, no, the conversation was still interesting. I promise.
Yeah. I hit the button to eject our group like right away. So appreciated listening. I didn't have much to contribute, but I appreciated listening to you guys.
Okay,
I was
good.
gonna say that before I ejected from the group.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for your feedback. I was in there taking a look while you all were wrapping up. So let me just pull this up really quick. Oops, did not go to the right. Oh, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna do it this way. Can you all see that okay? Like this last slide? Just a second. Okay.
Oh, yep.
Okay, so just I wanted with about like a couple of minutes left. I saw after you all went into breakout rooms and I stopped presenting, I saw this question about the sort of regional versus national approach. And I think that really what I want to emphasize with that and something that our program has found and also CEWA as a network has found is that it really, I think there's a necessity for both to be happening simultaneously. There also needs to be kind of this more coordination and de-siloing between industry and education, and also within different sort of federal entities as well in order to make this happen. And so having this sort of development at the national level of kind of alignment would be in support of, I think, really kind of de-siloing at the national level. But there are resources nationally that are not reaching communities equitably still. And although there's a huge push to make sure that that is happening, I think that building some sort of framework to kind of align it would be, or is still needed, but not saying by any means that would be on CEWA. I think it's just a noticing that we're finding. And again, where the CEWA expertise lies is really in that sort of K through 12 practitioner educator space. But I would love to hear just anything that you all have as we're wrapping up. So if you have any kind of additional feedback or themes that came up in your conversation, I saw a lot of good share outs again that kind of continue the like sort of federal versus regional approach, and some specifically related to like funding needs, but anything that you all like to share as we're wrapping up.
I guess I just want to say thanks for leading this today, Parker, and I hope that we can find money to do this because it's so critical, this workforce. So I don't know how much help I can be from Alaska, but whatever I can do.
Well, absolutely would love to have you in our conversations as we kind of pull together planning some more. So I'll reach out to you. Absolutely.
Great. Thanks, Parker.
But yeah, it looks like we're right at time. So I want to be respectful of everyone's time. But thank you for letting me present today and get some good feedback from you all. Our sort of like core team is meeting next week to talk about ways to get to build capacity and build some kind of internal I guess capacity for delivery, whether that be providing stipends for maybe an additional educator to work with us, or other folks who really needs some of that, I think, to continue at least like build consistency in what we're doing right now. Because all of our programs are pretty small and any help necessary is needed. So thank you so much again for participation, and I hope to be in more of these calls in the future. And want to make sure that I'm on that network list. But yeah, thank you, Gina, very much for letting me join.
Yeah, thank you so much, Parker. And thanks everyone for sharing your thoughts. And I think this has been a really good discussion. So hopefully this was helpful for you and your team, Parker. And I think we're all really supportive. So yeah, thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your afternoon. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.